Hello, and welcome to this live stream. I will just get an agenda up, I hope. So we're switching off to the other one. Okay, so the agenda for this night. Hello, here it comes. So this is about the OpenAI API and Assistant, this new feature that they launched in the early November. The Assistant entity, object, whatever we should call it. Let's do an assistant first in the playground and try it out a bit, just what it's got. And then look at the assistant API that is interesting from the viewpoint of OAI. So look at what we need to change and what we can get out of it. And then we will also look at a bit this application that I've been testing today, or that we will test today. What will be the improvement of running that as an assistant compared to running it out of OAI, as OAI is right now, without any changes for assistant and so on. And then let's make some conclusions and looks at what's up next for OAI. Possibly, maybe. So, when it comes to a brainstorming assistant, let's give it a name. Let's call it Brainstormant if we want to make a brainstorming assistant. We also provide some instructions, which is the same as the instructions that we usually give in the initial message, the assistant, that's assistant message to the normal chat. This is something we had in OAI before. So my instructions for this one is that you are a helpful brainstorming assistant, capable to apply SIT for any problem. And SIT is, for those who know it, systematic inventive thinking. It's a way of thinking when it comes to brainstorming. The tools we will be using is retrieval, or in other words, I will upload a file that contains this SIT algorithm, or a description of how SIT is supposed to work, so that ChatGPT has something to work from, a framework more or less. And that is all that the assistant needs from us. And then we have a prompt, and I will just try to ask it to find some ways to improve an application product, and give some more information of what this minimal thing can do. And let's see what this SIT framework can do together with ChatGPT as a kind of brainstorming assistant. So that's the main test. So let's jump over to the terminal, or actually let's jump over to the playground. So here we are at the playground, I hope. Yep. And here we can just create an assistant. Bran. No, that's too much Game of Thrones for me. Brainstorming. Instructions. You are a helpful assistant. Maybe we should say brainstorming. Capable to apply SIT to any subject, task. Let's call it task. Okay. And when we're talking about models, I will use the latest, the GPT-4 Turbo. I'm not using functions, I'm not using code interpreter, but we will upload a file. One file that I have here and here. I have a description of SIT in this text file. Quite a short file. So this is more just a test of how assistants work. I'm not doing I'm not testing the edges here. I'm doing more or less a standard assistant job. Okay, we have a brainstorming assistant and so on. So let's go for the prompt. I'll just copy the text from this slide. Just see what it does with it. Find ways to improve a certificate management product. Who can notify blah 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 and da da da. Okay, so let's try it out. Thinking. It's sending messages back and forth. We can see that in the logs. And what we can see there is the messages that goes back and forth in this thread. So the threads is a new thing since 6th of November. We'll get back to threads later. Maybe if it's, it seems to be quite high load. When I tried this one 2 days ago, it was quite faster responses. But oh, here we have something. Let's look at the answer. To improve, blah blah blah, that can notify a certificate expiration in advance and keep renewal instructions handy using systematic inventive thinking. We can apply 5 techniques: subtraction, multiplication, task unification, division, and attribute dependency are some ideas for each technique. So subtraction, remove manual checking. Oh, that's easy. Eliminate the need for users to manually check certificates by implementing real-time monitoring and automated alerts. Yeah, that sounds really easy. It can be done. There are products who can do that. Not what I would call subtraction. I would call that addition, actually. But yeah, at least that's something. Simplify interface, remove complex navigation menus and create a straightforward dashboard focusing exclusively on certificate status and actions required. Yeah, I think it's just trying to do something here. That is more or less what it is. It's a very simple thing. So moving on, multiplication. Multiple notification channels. Use multiple channels for notification. Email, SMS, push notification, internal message system to ensure that users are informed by their preferred method. Yeah, well, that's not a bad idea actually. It could be very useful, I guess. Let's see what we have more. Variable notification timing. Introduce multiple notifications at different time intervals. 90 days, 60 days, 37 days before expiration. Yeah, that could be kind of interesting. I mean, if you want to do planning and introduce the certification renewals into a sprint or some kind of planning, that could be quite good to have. So, good idea. Task unification. Unified dashboard. Integrate certificate management with other network management tools to create a unified dashboard for IT management tasks. Yeah, maybe. But it's not a small feat, but it can be done. Automatic renewal. Have the system not just notify about expiration, but also initiate the renewal process. Yeah. As I said, there are softwares who can do that. It's not a simple task, but yeah, it can be done. It's an improvement, at least. Role-based access. Create separate interfaces or modules for different roles, as system administrators, security officers, and end users to streamline the relevant task for each role. Yeah, if this was a more tool for a bigger company or more complex software, yeah, I guess you had to do that, but as long as it's a simple one, we don't need role-based access. But it's a good thought, something to think about and evaluate. Notification customization. Allow the division of notification settings so that different groups within an organization can set their preferences for certificate renewal alerts. I guess that's also some kind of role and get different notifications depending on what role you have. Yeah, worth thinking about for a more complex setting. Attribute dependency. Smart alerts. Change the frequency and urgency of alerts based on the importance and usage of the certificate. Critical systems might get more frequent updates and proactive alerts. Yeah, that's a very good thought, actually. Maybe that should be done. Could be done, at least, in the existing product. Good thought. Context-aware instructions. Dynamically update renewal instructions based on the specific environment or configuration where the certificate is installed or based on recent changes in renewal procedures. Yeah, a good thought, but it's a quite complex thing to do for all possible ones. A simple solution to this is to keep it manually done, and then we can cover all cases. Additional improvement ideas. Machine learning predictions. Implement machine learning algorithms to predict when certificates might face issues beyond the usual expiration dates, such as revocation or blacklisting. I don't think that we need machine learning for that. That should be fairly straightforward to do, if it's needed. Integration with registration authorities. To streamline renewals, integrate directly with CAs and registration authorities for seamless insurance and renewal processes. Yeah, if you do any kind of automatic renewal, that would be good, but it's not a small feat. Workflow automation, create customized workflows for different scenarios of certificates, allowing for automated steps, approval process, and yeah, could possibly be needed if the target here is larger organizations. Worth thinking about, but not now. Documentation and training. Include an easily accessible knowledge base within the product with up-to-date instruction, best practices for certificate management and training materials. Checkbox. We have that already, so well, good thinking, but we have that. To ensure that the product improvements is focused on effective. Okay. So all in all, quite a good brainstorming, and as usual when we have brainstorming, some good ideas, some not so good ideas at least. But I think this is very simple assistant and it works. Maybe I should sell this one on the assistant GPT thing. Okay, so this is what we have. We have an assistant, we have trying to use it, and I would say that it works. These are all the messages that it takes. Right. So what is up next? We were talking about looking at the Assistant API. And we have here the API reference for OpenAI that you can find in platform openai.com, docs, API reference, and so on. Assistant API is listed under beta test, together assistants, threads, messages, and runs. Because this is new since 6th of November, since the dev day. We have an assistant object, which is the first one. It looks like this. It has an ID, an object, which is assistant, the type of object more or less. When it was created, the name of it, description, model, which one should be using, and what was the instruction that is early, and what tools they're using. In this case, it's the type code interpreter, the one that we didn't use. We can look here, instructions. Oh, it doesn't show here. Oh, tools. Here we can see. Tools can be code interpreter, retrieval tool, and function. So we used retrieval tool to handle the file that we have inside the description of SIT. And we could also call functions. And functions is the same thing that we implemented for normal chats. So we can also have this one call the same functions that we're using for normal chats. Okay, now you can also create an assistant. And you do this with this request. If we're looking at the Python request here. Yeah. you give your instructions, you give your name, and you list your tools and what model there is. That is the only thing needed, and you will get back a response giving an assistant object that we talked about earlier. Quite straightforward. You can also retrieve an assistant if you want to use it. You can modify an assistant if I want to change the instructions, for instance. Add something to the instructions, I can do that. And we can delete assistants. Then we can also try to list assistants. And to do that, we can use the Python tool, or we can use curl. And I was thinking, let's just try that one out. I think I should have a prompt somewhere. Yeah, here it is. So I have a curl message ready to be used. I hope it works. Yep. So, yeah. The request looks like this one. I'm just hiding my API key. It will be quite expensive for me if it gets out on the internet. And the answer we get back is this. We get a list that contains object IDs. And here we have this ID. It is of type assistant. It was created this time, and it's called Brainstorming. There's no description. The model it uses is GPT-4 Turbo, as it is called in the API. Instructions: you were helpful brainstorming assistant capable of apply SIT to any task. The only tools it's got is retrieval, and we have one file called this one. So this is the one that we defined in the playground. So it works. That's kind of nice. You can do list assistants, assistant file object. Yeah, that could be. You can handle these files. You can create files, retrieve files, and delete files. And of course, list all files. We could try that as well, but it's I guess it's quite boring thing. We know I only have one file available, so we will get back that one. So if we are to implement assistants in OAI, we need to handle threads. Threads are these ones. Thread objects are defined like that, and they can be created, and then you can threads are their own thing. You can create them, you can retrieve them and modify them and delete them. And what you put into threads are messages, which comes after. And messages are more or less the same as we are used to since the ChatGPT thing. At least they look very similar. Now they have IDs. They are talking about what they are. They are thread messages, when they were created, what thread they belong to, and so on. So this is the object, and you can create them with this one. You just create them and you just give what thread, the name of the thread, what role does this message have? Is it a user message, or is it an assistant message, or is it a system message? The three types of messages that we have been using in ChatGPT as well. And then content, which is the actual prompt that we're using. So we can create messages, we can retrieve messages, we can modify them, and we can list messages. I guess list messages is something that you do from a thread, or is it per client? Yeah, you list messages for a thread, as it is listed here. Yeah. And then you can have files in threads as well if you just need temporary files or temporary information that can be retrieved, and lists and so on. But while you're making messages to a thread, it doesn't actually work until you start a run. So you have a run object that has some kind of status. Yeah, here it is. The status is interesting of this one. So a run is started at some time and hopefully expires is something else. Yeah, you can cancel a run, it can fail, but hopefully it will get completed at some time. And runs are of course also like threads, created in a very easy way. You create a thread, you create a run with a thread and an assistant. That's how everything is tied together here. And runs can be retrieved, modified, listed, and so on. I haven't really looked into this, but it's a bit more complicated than the chat API at least. But I think this is better because, yeah, okay, we will get back to that. But I think you will need this kind of things when you're running. You could have many threads running, and you can have many assistants running at the same time, and you need to have status of them all and look at feedback from them. There is also a possibility to create a new thread and run it directly, which is, well, I guess, what I will be doing when I start off with this one to make it simpler to implement. There is some kind of state machine here that needs to be implemented to use this one. But you have a step ID and so on. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there is a bit to look into if this is going to be implemented. Okay, so this was what the API looks like. So let's make a small comparison here. presentation is really slow. If we are comparing what we have in OAI today with what Assistants can give and requires, on the right side we have the Assistant. So Assistant has threads, as we've been showing. We can have retrieval or files. We give initial instructions to Assistants. We can use functions. I didn't do that this time, but it can be done. We give a prompt, and we can use code interpreter, which is supposed to be able to write and handle Python code. This is something I haven't been looking into yet, but we will get back to that one. So on OAI, when it comes to threads, we have sessions in OAI, and that is the basic chat session. If we're talking about something, we keep those things together in a session, and that is the OAI-N command that starts a new session when that time, and then all subsequent calls to OAI is put into that sequence of messages or that thread. Maybe I should start calling it threads even if it isn't threads. But there are the same things available in OAI already. Then we have files. Yeah, we can do that. In OAI-N file, we can import any kind of information from a text file from not a PDF yet, yeah, but we can have, for instance, a CVS file or something else. Mostly what I've been using it for is text files. So that is not something new. Instructions, yeah, kind of, sort of. You can put these kind of initial instructions inside the file that you put to the OAI-N file, and then ChatGPT will actually look at that one as well. Functions are implemented in OAI with OAI-F function name. I do mine in Python, and I got some videos on the channel showing how to do that. Quite simple, actually. On Assistant, you give a prompt, and yeah, we do that in OAI as well. And on Assistant, you have access to this code interpreter, which then does not exist at all. Possibly, maybe some parts of it could maybe be done as a function, but then you have to write really smart Python code that can write Python codes. Yeah, maybe I need to look more into what the code interpreter can do actually, to say anything about it. But code interpreter is the only thing that we don't have in OAI at the moment. So, looking at the next stages here. Yeah, this code interpreter. What is it really needed for? What could we gain of putting it inside? Really, if I need to get some new functionality out of OAI, I think I need to use code interpreter for there to be any kind of use of implementing all this with threads and messages and assistants. Otherwise, I can do everything inside OAI already as it is today. So the key here is do a more in-depth evaluation of code interpreter. And then we're talking about incorporate assistants into OAI. It won't happen until I have a really good use case, probably requiring code interpreter. I guess that the threads and the runs and so on is the way that the OpenAI API is going. So sooner or later, I guess we will need to implement it. But yeah, not yet. Soon, but not yet. And then other things where we also have a lot of sound functions coming the 6th of November, both generating sound and listening and analyzing sound. That is something that could be implemented into OAI. I haven't done it yet. I don't see a way of implementing a kind of generic OAI that just takes something and reacts to it in a kind of multimodal way, that you can give one written command and then a spoken command and so on. I heard some feedback that it didn't really work that well in ChatGPT either, or the playground. I haven't really played around that much with it, but the sound could be very interesting to get transcripts out of files and so on. I haven't worked with it. We'll see. Maybe could be done. Another thing for OAI is, as maybe we're talking about, maybe a UI, a user interface for OAI. Maybe not part of the same code package, but maybe a separate one, at least starting off as a separate code package. Could be something I'll be working on over Christmas. We'll see. There was a new package of custom tickle, I think it was called, that looks quite good. It had both dark and light mode into its generic start, so it looks quite modern, and yeah, I'm not too strange about giving that a try. Maybe I will. And that was that about OAI. So let's take a peek at what we have. Okay. No comments this time either. Yeah, let's see how long I will continue doing these lives. I seem to be doing them more or less for myself. There was also a comment on the GitHub, a comment on being able to read and produce dot files, which is more or less GraphWiz, I think, GraphWiz files. So generating and reading files describing flow charts and that kind of images where you have some kind of flow or that kind. It sounds very interesting to be able to do that, because describing some things as a flow or a diagram is quite powerful, at least for us engineers. that also sounds as a thing I should be looking into a bit more. Maybe that has something to do with code interpreter, because I've been reading a bit about that. If you allow code interpreter, you can have a lot of different types of files. I haven't checked if dot files are part of that or GraphViz files are part of it. But not a bad idea to have something of interpreting graphs and diagrams. That's also something for the future. I will look into all of this moving forward. So thank you all for hanging around. And I guess I will do the next stream in about a fortnight, and maybe I have something more solid to talk about on that one. Thank you all for calling. See you later.